837, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Once again, appreciate Moon Griffon for hopping on board, talking a little bit about the Brian Kelly situation and how the governor got involved, along with the LSU Board of Supervisors, and just kind of tying it all together as to where we move forward within the LSU program, where we're moving forward as a university, where we're moving forward as a state. You catch Moon weekdays 9 to 11 right here on Talk 107.3 FM. All right, we're going to step away from the Brian Kelly story for just a little bit and talk about but we're going to talk about the crossing of the streams between farming and artificial intelligence. We've got Colin, Raby, and Grant Muslo. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. From FarmMind.ai. Welcome aboard. How you all doing this morning?
Good.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you all on. Okay, let's start with the absolute most basic part of this.
Yeah.
What is FarmMind?
Yeah. So FarmMind originally was called FarmSmarter.ai, recently changed to FarmMind.org, but FarmSmarter.ai still works.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, it comes from a thesis. Grant and I guess now like 2 years ago, we helped to start one of the first classes in the nation in collaboration with then Provost Haggerty on building large language model systems that were useful to businesses. Mm-hmm. And so, back then, a lot of people were using these things for poems and a lot of these things for stuff that wasn't really economically useful.
Right.
But so the whole theory was, what if we could partner with faculty? What if we could partner with local businesses to put AI into practice to actually be useful? And one of the folks that showed up was Professor Stevenson of the Ag Center. Okay. And he started talking about all of the problems that they have getting the high quality research that they do out to growers, out to consultants, out to everyone in the industry that needs to know that research. And so we set about to make this virtual ag expert. And then once we made this expert, not only did we expand its knowledge, but we realized it was most useful when we embedded it into the workflows people were already using. Because some of the biggest friction in ag, a lot of people don't realize, if you're a farmer, you're a small business owner. Mm-hmm. You have all the same problems that any other small business owner has, plus all of the problems of relying on the weather, relying on the dirt, relying on all these other factors.
Let's continue right there, because it's the how behind FarmMind that I find fascinating. Yeah. Because if I'm thinking of a farmer, I'm thinking, I plant on this date. Yeah. We water until we harvest. The whole thing. Like, how does the computer get involved? How does AI make the most of this?
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, AI is pattern recognition, right? Mm-hmm. It's able to take these masses of data, all this research, all these regulations, all these literally millions of pages of research, mm-hmm. and turn it into, here's what matters for you, right? Okay. Rather than having to keep up to date with the thousands of pages coming out every single year, if you're using this system, it can weed through all of that and tell you exactly if you're growing sugarcane in Point Coupee Parish with this certain history of using certain pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, mm-hmm. here's what the research shows and the regulations allow you to do to optimize your growing schedule.
How far into this are we? Because I feel like that's a lot of data. You have to have a huge sample set, right? A huge sample set, because you got to talk about like seasonality. You've got to talk about different commodities.
Yep.
Different weather patterns, like La Niñas versus El Niños versus, the drought we had 2 years ago. Like, how do you factor all of this in? It's huge data sets, Chris.
That's right. So we have what's called an agentic network. So we don't have to tackle the problem as one single large problem. Mm-hmm. We can actually divide up the problem into a bunch of smaller issues. So we can only focus on the weather. We can only focus on the soil. We can only focus on the variety that you're talking about.
Right.
We can only focus on this and that, right? And what this agentic system does is you're able to specialize in very different areas, right? So you can specialize in pesticides, you can specialize in weather. And by communicating this up in the network, all of these agents, they're experts in their own domain, and mm-hmm. they're able to communicate with each other mm-hmm. and solve the problem on a larger scale.
Right. Imagine having a team of experts at your disposal, right? So imagine this table was a little bigger, right? Mm-hmm. And we had one expert that knew every single EPA label that was put out. We had another expert that knew everything the LSU Ag Center put out. We had another expert that knew all the journal information, another expert that knew all the weather, another expert that knew everything about fertilizers, right? And so then when you're trying to solve a complex problem, you can kind of throw it on the table and say, hey, solve it. And they can all debate to solve your problem.
Okay, now you've got to take all of that and then make it commodity specific, like all that for sugarcane, all that for green beans, all that for corn, whatever. Like it applies differently every time.
Well, it turns out that a lot of this data, like once you take all this, like all of the information for all these different commodities is generally packaged together, right?
Okay.
So you have like the LSU Ag Guide where you have all of these different particular crops and such that are all in one guide, right?
Okay.
So frequently the way that information is published, these are all together. So it turns out once you're able to convert the raw information into something that the AI can understand, then you kind of, what falls out of that is a knowledge of everything, of all of these agricultural commodities. But the biggest problem is not only kind of getting that data, but then also converting it. That took a very long time to figure out how to do it. And then how to stitch all of these experts together to actually make them useful. And then also how to embed those into these workflows, right? Whether you are a crop consultant taking notes, right, with all of your crop scouts all taking notes and wanting them all to feed onto one account. Right. Whether you are publishing recommendations, whether you are doing research and you want to make sure that the research says the same thing as the labels and the same thing as the regulation, right? All of these different things, having a virtual intelligence, being able to be there and help you is really useful.
We've got Colin, Raby, and Grant Muslo from FarmMind.org with us. Guys, this is catching on.
Yeah.
You've already won some awards, already won some dollars behind it. Tell me the story.
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, in the fall of 2023, this started as just a research project in a class. And then in the spring of 24, there's something called the LSU Venture Challenge.
Right.
And so I saw a poster for the Venture Challenge and decided, you know what, let's apply for it. Let's see what happens. So we applied for it, submitted our 2-minute video, got past the first round, then had to submit a business plan, got past the next round, then got to go up and make a presentation, and we ended up winning the Venture Challenge, right? The biggest trouble in turning this from an idea into reality was literally getting the hardware needed to do it, right? Getting the server space, getting some of the stuff that we would need to make these advanced agentic network systems. And so that initial prize winning allowed us to make the prototype of the system. And then once we had the prototype, we were able to show it. We were able to compete in a couple other pitch competitions, whether it was the Pelican Cup, the Rice Business Plan Competition, the Arkansas Governor's Cup. And, you know, we were able to win the Pelican Cup. We were the first LSU team to come top 7 at Rice, first LSU team to place at Arkansas. And actually, just recently, we were named top 4 in the American Farm Bureau's Ag Innovation Challenge, where we'll be competing for their top prize this January in Anaheim, California.
Which, yeah, I saw that story, which is awesome because that would be a lot of, pardon the pun, seed money for you.
Absolutely. So, exactly.
Yes.
It'll help us grow.
It's
too
many puns. Way too many puns. Ultimately, the goal here is
fertile earth. Yeah.
Ultimately, the goal here, we're talking with Colin, Raby, and Grant Muslo about FarmMind.org. Ultimately, the goal here is greater yield, more profitability for our farmers, and at the same time, a more affordable commodity for consumers as well. How, as you balance all this out, how do you make sure you're maximizing all three?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, kind of like I said, there's 2 inputs, right? What are your costs and what are your revenue, right? And then you hope that you are maximizing both those, right? You're maximizing your revenue and minimizing your costs in ways that are also environmentally sustainable and safe, right? In ways that minimize harmful runoff, in ways that minimize some of the more detrimental effects and detrimental
We even
practices.
talk about runoff.
Yeah,
My
exactly.
goodness, yeah.
Yep.
We're right. And so, you know, look, if you want to make sure that you are eliminating the harmful things in your field, you're going to be very aggressive with the chemistries that you use. Even if sometimes it's actually slightly more effective to use less, right? So imagine the situation where you find out there's an option where you can save on costs because you're using less, you're being more sustainable because there's less runoff, and you end up getting the same or higher yields. Like, it's those type of niche situations that our system can help people find, and then once they want to execute on it, automate the documentation they need for regulatory compliance, help them get through a gap analysis at way less cost and time, right? And as we know, like, time is money in all these situations. The difference of knowing what to do in a week or 2 weeks could mean the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful crop, especially in like the last year where margins have been so thin. You see people going out of business, whether it's in soybeans or others. Like, our farmers need every advantage they can get, and so do the people around them, the agricultural consultants and such like that.
Let's talk about adoption moving forward.
Yeah.
Who are we selling this to? Who needs to hear about it?
So it's kind of we expand over time. our initial customers are actually the people that are already the experts, the agricultural consultants, because this is helping them do what they already do better, right? They're already the experts. They know what's going on. They might know, okay, in this situation, you need to, I have Mexican rice borers. We need to apply Vanacore, right? But they still have to go into the guide, into the label, check what's the application rate, what is all this other details. Whereas in ours, they can just say, I know I need to apply Vanacore. Tell me all the details, and it'll go find the Vanacore label, pull all those details they need, see how large the acreage of the field they're working on. So it'll say, great, you need to apply it at this rate for this acre. Here's exactly how much you need to apply, so that they can then just buy it and get through all the busy work, right? And then secondarily are agricultural extensions and research that are doing this to verify their information is correct. Because fortunately, this system has been able to compare all this research to all what's already out there to check that it's correct. And then lastly, the small farmers themselves, this is really bringing them from 0 to 1, because some of these folks don't have access to an agricultural consultant, and this is really getting them that intelligence.
What is the biggest hurdle? I mean, is it the farmer himself to adapt and adopt?
Yeah, I mean, change is hard. The current landscape of agricultural software is a patchwork of disconnected softwares. And so, like, we're coming into some of these folks, and they're like, wait, are you telling me that this could, like, replace this and this and this? And we're like, yes, right? But that's a big... They're used to using these things. They're used to how these other things look, right? And so it's the friction of change. But, I really do think, kind of every generation faces its frontier of change. And I think ours is the intelligence explosion, right? It's the intelligence age. And so I think if there's a time to institute these changes, no matter how hard it is, no matter how many doors we got to knock, no matter how many conferences we got to go talk to, this is the time to do it. And I think you'll very quickly see folks starting to realize all the benefits that they can get from adapting their practices.
Colin, Raby, Grant Muslo from FarmMind.org. Thank y'all so much for a couple minutes. Fascinating stuff. Very interesting new stuff. All right, thank y'all. We got Your Money Now coming your way 20 seconds from right now on the back end of Your Money Now. Of course, we'll take a little break. We'll check traffic. When we come back from checking traffic, we'll step into the outside in. Also, one more time, of course, our lead story of the morning, Coach Brian Kelly, LSU Coach Brian Kelly, fired yesterday. What does that mean? Well, we spoke with both Matt Moscona and Hunt Palmer about it. Both of those interviews will be available at talk1073.com as soon as the show's over with.
Go Tigers.
Awesome stuff.
Awesome.
Damn, that moved fast.
Yeah.
Flies by.
Yeah, it does. All right. Well, thank you.
We're super excited to be here. Appreciate it.
Oh, very good. Yeah. So Nancy hit me up. I've yet to tell her no about anything. When she hit me up with this, I'm like, this sounds like it's got a whole lot of potential, but it needs a whole lot of translation.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do all the translation, but I can do some of it. So.
That's right. Try to keep it as high level as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we appreciate it. I mean, it's definitely a,
So I have Mike Strain on the show every month.
Yeah.
And what we're tasked with in Louisiana right now is feeding the world.
Yeah.
And we're running behind.
Yep.
We're doing our best, and we do it better than anybody else on the planet, but we're still running behind. So how do we make more?
Yeah.
And
exactly.
To me, this is as simple and as complex as that.
And that's where, like, it's interesting. Like, at first, we have to start kind of the bottom up, just getting individual buy-in because it's benefiting the individual consultants, the individual growers. But down the line, there's also a lot of really interesting stuff where you take all of the information anonymously, of course. Everyone's data is their data. Yeah. But then kind of using that to do more kind of meta-analyses to see how can we optimize the output of here to most benefit the state.
On an organizational level.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And, like, literally sometimes we're starting to use this, and sometimes the system is flagging. Like, literally, if you're growing soybeans in a certain part of the state, they'll say, like, hey, just, like, do this conservation program that'll pay you $50 an acre. Because it's saying, like, this is going to be more, this program you might not know exists where you can just, like, plant trees or something is actually going to be more profitable for you than doing what you've always done.
Did I miss that in the segment, or did you just drop that on me? Well, because, I mean, factoring in where, where the government can supplement is another part of their overall profit and loss statement. It's another part of their budget is
absolutely
subsidies.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, no, and there's like so much that comes out of it. Like
it's one of the most interesting optimization problems we've ever worked on.
Yeah,
That's a lot to juggle, man.
We recently instituted something where if you're tracking the finances on the system, and you're growing a product that has commodity prices, you can literally see like what the futures contracts are for the commodity prices. So at any point, you can see how profitable you'd be if you book your profits.
Oh wow!
It's like that's just not something that's available.
Their
somewhere.
AI system says, "Hey, well, you know, your financial statements don't really make sense because you look like you're getting a cash price of this, but you should have just gotten the futures price because it was, you know, so much higher." So.
Yeah,
a lot of moving parts, and you need AI at these points to be able to coagulate all this information.
We're learning so quickly about how to adapt to AI in this business, in every business. I mean, it is really adapt or die. Right. It's either the term I've been using is either use it or lose to it.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the most well-used statements, but it's well-used because it's true, is that AI isn't going to replace people. People using AI are going to replace people.
Correct.
You know, it's the people that embrace the new technology that come to dominate the era.
Right.
So, very cool. Well, thank you. Much appreciate it.
Thank y'all for coming in. This will be up on likewise. It'll be up on talkwithsmithradio.com for the audio version. Facebook and YouTube are the full show. So if y'all want to lift out of that to repurpose for whatever you want on social, go for it. Yeah. Yep.
And we'll make sure to try to tag it every time.
Please do.
Yes.
Thank you. Likewise.